flying circles around the stage.
And then like leaving and then never coming back.
So hi, I'm Sarah. This is Jonny.
Sarah, by the way, is a poet extraordinaire. I've seen on TED Talks. She has 3 published books.
Oh no, we're
No Matter the
losing
Wreckage,
you.
Me, and the Type. And is one of my best friends ever. And
Yay, friends.
Yay.
We're here today because Jonny's book is officially released into the world. You either have it in your hands or you will very soon. And we thought a really fun way of celebrating this is to gather in this beautiful, incredible place that is celebrating its 90th anniversary this month. Did you guys know that? Wow. Yeah, 90 years. What up, Strand Bookstore? So cool. And so we thought this would be a wonderful way of celebrating it, is to have a conversation about Jonny, about this book, about the work, and then Jonny's going to walk us through a little sneak peek of the book, and then we'll also have an opportunity to have some folks here ask some questions if you have questions that you've been wanting to ask this alien. Okay, cool.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Yay, questions. Okay.
Thank you all for coming, by the way. This is amazing. This is magnificent.
Yeah.
Round of applause for you guys.
Okay, so.
Yes.
This is a quiz. So, you started your existence in Alberta.
Yes.
When you were 12, you moved to Toronto.
Correct.
And 12 is kind of a wild time to pick up your whole life.
I cried a lot.
Yeah. And then you were in Toronto until you came to New Haven for architecture school. Okay, cool. So, you wrote a book about being an alien, and you are someone who is Chinese,
Yes.
Canadian,
Yes.
while you're here,
Yes.
and also while you're not here.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the time. You're also an artist in a sea of engineers.
Correct.
You're also an introvert
Yes.
who likes to perform.
Correct.
So, talk to me about all of the ways that alienness is a part of your life, or has been, and also like, what does being an alien mean?
Oh man, that's such a good question. Okay, I guess we'll start like from. I've always been someone who likes to contradict himself at every step of my life, and like part of that was, like you mentioned, being an artist while in engineering, and like being someone who loves performing but is also like deeply introverted and sometimes has social anxiety and stuff. But I feel like that contradiction has let me see the world in a lot of different ways. I really enjoy, and I think maybe to a fault, kind of alienating myself from any group that I'm in. I feel like once I am part of a group like all the engineers, part of me kind of feels the need to be like, okay, well, I know what this is about, but I also really want to explore this life and see what it's like over here. So I'm never able to kind of stop myself from doing that, and it's kind of like this compulsion to gather as many experiences as I can. And through doing that, I feel like I always feel like an outsider because I never find anyone else who's like me. It's very difficult to find someone, I think, who is interested in kind of going through all those things and finding those combinations in the exact same ways. I think also my identity as like a person of color and a Chinese Canadian has made me kind of allowed to be in a lot of spaces but never paid attention to in a way. And so I think I tie, even though the book and all of my work is not explicitly about my identity, that kind of colors all of my experiences, and that kind of lets me have the perspective that I have, which is someone who can kind of float between things but never be paid attention to, and kind of occupy those little corners of the world.
Yeah, so I'm fascinated by connecting Chineseness with alienness. My family, my mom's side of the family is Japanese American, and her side of the family, both of her parents and all of her grandparents were in internment camps during World War II, and her grandmother was allowed out to go to college. So in the middle of World War II, as a Japanese American woman,
she traveled alone across the country to go to college, and she was asked on the East Coast to like do talks sometimes at like Rotary clubs, because she was this like strange creature, and they were like, tell us about the world on the West. And she wrote a speech one time that I found years later that she delivered in front of a Rotary Club that was a letter she had written to her parents while they were still being held in internment camps, and it's addressed, "Dear Enemy Alien." And to me, the like alienness of like being both home and unknown is like something that I think a lot of people who are not from a place or not recognized by the place they're from feels like very resonant, and translates across, I think, a lot of different histories and people.
Yeah.
You also mentioned like not being seen or being invisible, and I'm curious about, okay, so if you're an alien and you're somewhere where it's not where you're from, you look around the room and nobody looks like you. And you and I talk a lot about representation.
Yes. Especially in the fields that we're...
Especially in the fields that we both kind of toy and occupy, flip between.
Yes.
And what happens when you grow up looking around and not seeing anybody that looks like you, either like in your life or in TV or in the arts. Like was that your experience, and what does that mean to you now?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like, I think that type of experience is common among many children of immigrants as well. But I definitely grew up like loving and absorbing like American culture, right? Like, and my parents immigrated from China, and I remember like we used to sit around the couch and just watch like whatever the most like American movies you could find at Blockbuster, which Blockbuster is, for those of you who don't know.
It used to be a store where they would have
A bunch of VHS.
so VHSs.
What does VHS stand for? Video Home System? Did I make that up? Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Video Home System cassettes.
So you love Blockbuster.
And so we would go to Blockbuster like every weekend and like pick like we'd watch American Pie and then American Pie 2 and then American Pie.
Jonny for like the most American movie he could think of. American Pie. American filmmakers everywhere just.
But we like my family consumed these things, and in a sense it was kind of like my parents were learning about North American culture at the same time we were, and so together we kind of learned about this stuff together. But I also noticed that like I didn't even grow up kind of thinking that someone who looked like me could be part of this world, because my only references were like Jackie Chan. And I was not badass like Jackie Chan was, or like Duck Kwang or whatever from 16 Candles, or Short Round from Indiana Jones, the little Asian boy in the second one. And I had never like kind of pictured myself in a role like that. And I think part of the reason why I was so kind of like gung-ho about doing all this stuff while I was like in engineering school and in architecture school was just because in a way, not having a definition of any of this stuff was incredibly limiting, but also I was like, oh, well, I'm in uncharted territory, so I'm just going to do whatever feels right to me. And I think because of that, I've gotten the chance to kind of be stubborn and kind of go out there and have people just constantly confused about me. But like my Twitter account was private for about 3 years, and when I finally decided to kind of show my face and like post what I looked like, I got such an amazing, overwhelming response from like young Asian kids who were following me, who were just like, "Oh my God, I like had no idea like someone like who looked like me could kind of do this." And like people had written me saying like they had started crying when they found out, and it was all like very overwhelming for me. So like to know that I was that person for a lot of like young kids, and will continue to be the person, I guess, who kind of is that like representative for the time being, is really important and special to me.
Yeah, people talk a lot about like role models, but I think maybe more than role model is possibility model, and that so often we only think we can be what we see as possible.
Yes, if you can't see it, you can't be it.
Yeah, and it's really hard for people to know what what the options are if the option hasn't been in front of them before. And so to say that like you can be this kid and not only be one of the 25 most influential people on the internet, but also be, I guess maybe more importantly, someone who is an artist and an engineer and a designer and a student and a researcher and a whimsical performer, right? Like all of those things can exist, and there's a multitudinous.
Yeah, we contain multitudes.
Yeah.
Y'all. Yeah. All of us do.
Is really important for people to see, I think. So, all right.
How does that affect your work and your identity as a poet of like mixed race Asian descent?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to like speak for neither Asian people nor mixed people, but I definitely grew up not seeing anybody. I mean, like the closest was like Lucy Liu. I'm like, Lord help you if you're trying to compare yourself to Lucy Liu on any axis. And it's funny because we both referenced actors, which like neither of us are, right? But that's kind of like the closest thing we look for.
Right, because that's kind of like the first thing every kid sees is just like entertainment and movies and TV, and like I think that's why the fight for like representation in the entertainment industry is so powerful, because those are oftentimes like the first images that we see growing up, and it kind of like sets our expectations, and it defines who like how we are supposed to place ourselves in the world in a way. So
yeah, and this is a bit of a stretch, but go with me on this for a second.
Yeah.
I think that because for someone like us, when you're a kid, when you look around and none of the characters look like you, it requires an expansive imagination, and it requires learning how to empathize with a character that doesn't look like you, because nobody looks like you.
Right.
Yeah. So we have like this training from when we're very little to like, I put myself in the position of a character that looks nothing like me, because that's what I have to do, because all of the movies are people that don't look like me. But that ability to empathize with a character that isn't me, so directly informs like what the character of this book is, right?
Right.
So like, fast forward to you're an adult, you spent your whole life learning how to empathize with characters that don't look like you. All of a sudden the main character of your book is an alien that no one else looks like, who is able to empathize with all the other creatures.
That was like A+ gymnastics.
But like, isn't that neat that like when you were the kid that needed the character that wasn't there, you then grew up to make the character.
I hope, yes, yeah. I hope that is kind of the role of the book for people. And I think like at the heart of it is, it's like, I think it's really hard to write a story where like the main character is someone who doesn't really do much of the speaking, and who does more of the like sitting back and observing and listening to other people. And I think part of that was this mission to kind of tell everyone who is kind of more on the quiet side and more on the listening side and more on like the
empathizing with other people's side, that that's important and that should be celebrated, and we should be able to have characters that also represent that side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Twitter for a second, which like you
Sure.
cannot talk about this book without talking about Twitter. How many people here, just by like noise making, how many people here like know of who this human is via Twitter?
Yay. How many people don't?
Yeah.
Abby, Michael.
What up? Literally my parents and one other person. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Twitter. I mean, you were genuinely yesterday called one of the 25 most influential people on the internet. When
Which
they
is
say
wild to me.
internet,
Yes.
that's a euphemism in this particular case for Twitter.
Yes.
That's like the space in which you exist online. Though your Instagram stories are also delightful.
Yes.
But for the leaves,
I do post nice leaves.
nice leaf updates,
Thank you.
if that's what you're looking for. But when you started this character, character of Jonny the alien was born on Twitter.
Yes, correct.
but also like wasn't fully formed when you started on Twitter.
Absolutely.
You
yeah.
found him.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you find him?
Oh, that's a good question too. I mean, I still treat my Twitter account as like a personal account. Like I see very little separation between kind of like the character and me, and I like that it's kind of just like this filter that I'm allowed to say whatever I want.
And blame it on an alien.
Yeah, and blame it on an alien.
If only we could all have this
little
luxury.
Mischievous fella. I do think that there is some value, and I kind of spend like some of my time in my research kind of thinking about this. There is a value to anonymity online. And I found that firsthand because I realized like if I had my face and my identity attached to like what I was doing on Twitter, one, like no one would have really paid attention to me, but also two, I wouldn't have been able to feel like I could write so openly and honestly. I think there's like a fun paradox there where like when you don't show yourself, you can kind of write more honestly as the person you are in a very strange way. And so that's kind of the fun of it too, is to having that filter and that foil to kind of to work with.
So was it that like I'm on Twitter, I'm just finding my way, and then you were like, oh no, I feel like an alien. What if I am an alien? Bam, alien.
Well, I mean, I think I started like tweeting and wanting to write jokes and like on the internet in 2012-ish, because I had been in Toronto for a while and I'd been writing sketch comedy and had like this group of comedy friends that I would always like hang out with and write stuff with and perform with. And when I moved to the US, I like lost the connection to all of that stuff. And so I still felt the need to like write comedy and to put things out there. And I stumbled upon Twitter. I stumbled upon like this weird small circle of like people on Twitter that all had strange cartoon accounts and like dumb names, and who like collectively were called Weird Twitter, I guess. Quote, Weird Twitter, unquote, with 100 quotes on each side. But I saw that when I was like, this is...
First rule of Weird Twitter is you don't call yourself Weird
yes,
Twitter. Yeah,
absolutely. And so I saw that and I was like, this is so fun. These people are like making humor that I'd never seen before, using the medium of like of text and a very short text in really creative ways. It kind of reminded me of like the Fluxus movement from poetry from like the 60s, and all these like avant-garde poets who were playing with type and aesthetic and like kind of form, but just like also making poop jokes and stuff. And jokes about dogs and stuff. And so I was like, oh, this is fun. I want to be part of this. In order to kind of gain like unofficial entry into this group, I have to also have a cartoon face and a silly name. And luckily my name already sounds like a fake name, Jonny Sun. So when I was thinking of like what to be, it wasn't even a thought. Like it took 2 seconds. I like opened up Illustrator. I drew a little face over my profile picture. And I was like, okay, this is fine. I'll change it if I want to. And I just never changed it. And that's what it looks like right there.
Hey.
Yay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Bonus points for you.
Yay.
Really good.
Yeah. You could have like walked around the line and been like, hello, nice to meet you. Thank you for coming.
No one would have known.
No one would have known.
You missed your chance. That's awesome. So at what point did it shift from like, this is just a thing, like a fun 2-second illustrated drawing, to all of a sudden like, oh no, this is like a character that I sort of drift in and out of depending on how I'm feeling and you know what it is. Like if we went back and looked at all your tweets, can you say like, oh yeah, this is when I was like in Jomny, and this is when I was like me, but like being weird?
Right. Yeah, I mean, part of it was in retrospect, like when I started thinking about doing a book, the reason I started thinking about that was I started like looking through, I'd been like on Twitter for like 3 years at that point, and I started looking through all my old stuff that I'd put on there, and I realized there were these common themes that I liked to go back to. So issues with like loneliness and solitude, working with kind of like internal feelings and feelings of self-doubt, and then also just like really, really weird, silly stuff. But I realized like by grouping all those and looking at them as like a body of work, they kind of came together as a voice. The cool thing about Twitter is like if I tried to write something on there every day, right? And so it kind of was this like tracking of exactly what I was thinking of that day in my life for 3 years. So it's like this cool like data project.
Yeah, when people ask Lin-Manuel Miranda if he has a journal, he always says like, you're gonna have to just read the Twitter
Yeah, exactly.
timeline. That's as close as it gets.
Shout out to Lin.
Shout out to Lin.
He's not
He's not in
here,
it, but we talk about
him. But yeah, there was like this really cool thing of like tracing my entire like history and realizing like, oh, this forms a more cohesive kind of narrative and like these cohesive themes more than I ever thought of when I was just like in the moment.
So something that I think is really important about your Twitter account, your vision as an artist, and then what ends up being in this book, and I think the people in this room would agree with me, is that if you were to like draw a spectrum from like taking shit seriously to not taking anything seriously, everything kind of like falls in somewhere on there. And I feel like the best comedians and the best writers are always like trying to figure out where the balance is, right? Because you and I have talked a bunch about our favorite jokes on Twitter.
Yes,
are
we have an
usually
ongoing like DM thread,
which is just us collecting like best of Twitter.
Yeah.
We're also preparing an eventual class curriculum, which is Internet Comedy 101.
Yes, correct.
That is not a joke. Look for it. They're going to teach it at MIT, I'm convinced.
Yes.
But one of the things that you and I both love is when someone goes all out for a joke that's like maybe for an audience of like 10 people.
Sure.
But like dedicates themselves so full, like works for that joke. And that means that they're taking it really seriously, right? That this is not a throwaway. Like I put hours into this joke.
Yes.
And it's so wonderful and it's so funny. The one that pops into my head is there's a Twitter account, Electro Lemon.
I knew you were going to say that.
And he has one single tweet joke where he has filled a bookshelf with DVDs of the movie Click.
Yes.
And there's a picture of him sitting next to it like this and says, over the past few months, I've been replacing every DVD in my parents' house with the movie Click. They haven't noticed yet. Now think about the effort that went into that joke.
Right, absolutely.
So like he took it so seriously that he put it, and in general, he does this with a lot of jokes. That's why we love him so much,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
So there's the idea of like taking it so seriously that you put in the work for the joke.
Yes.
But then there's also like, don't take yourself too seriously so that we can laugh.
Yes.
And something that your account does, and that Jonny does, is like both take things seriously enough to deal with stuff that is like real and heavy and beautiful and earnest, but also like not take it so seriously to like make a joke about a jack-o'-lantern getting a lobotomy, right? So like how do you figure out how to take something seriously or not seriously? Is it conscious? Is it not conscious? Is it an accident?
I think it's all of those, and it's also like I think things can fall like at both ends of the spectrum simultaneously, right? I think that's like the fun of getting to play with this form and to kind of just like test things out, because all my favorite work are things that kind of like sit at both ends of the spectrum at all times, if that makes sense. And so like I think my like perspective through like my writing with this stuff is that like everything is bad, and like I'm not gonna quote the tweet. You guys can read that. But it's kind of like this acceptance that there are terrible things out there, but at the same time we can find moments of like joy and niceness and silliness, and I think it's not a rejectance. It's not rejecting that like life can be overwhelming and negative sometimes. It's kind of accepting that, but also saying, hey, there are these like moments of light that can exist as well, and we should find those and celebrate them.
And silliness is okay too.
And silliness is okay, and like maybe more than ever now needed in the world. So
right now we're in like the victory lap of this book and this project.
Yes.
Like in the movie scene, you're like running through the crowd that's cheering your name. Literally, there was a crowd downstairs, right? That's the moment we're in. But if we rewound the VHS, okay, so it used to be that if you pressed a button, the tape would actually, you could hear it anyway.
Yes.
If we rewound the VHS
Uh-huh.
and we went back to like the sports montage that showed you working on this,
Mhm.
there was some like
Oh yeah, there was some like moments of
moments of deep, dark before the
Yeah.
dawn type stuff.
right, like bottom of the second act. type
Yeah,
things,
yeah. So like, what was that? And I've heard you say that this book came out of the loneliest time in your life.
Mhm.
Why is that? What was that?
Sure.
How did you make it through that?
Yeah.
And like, where we at? Bless
Yeah,
you, person
bless
who
you.
just sneezed.
I mean, it did come out of, I think I spent the year working on this book in almost like extreme solitude, both for the fact that I had just moved to Boston and like started my program at MIT and felt totally like outnumbered, outmanned. Yeah,
Outgunned.
gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
And also just like totally overwhelmed by like how many really amazing, intelligent, intimidating people were around me at all times, and it caused me to kind of something that like they don't talk about enough in school and with academia is like how stressful and how like painful and terrifying and lonely it makes you feel, because it is like the weight of literally all these people, past and present, weighing upon you, and there are like enormous expectations there. And so for me it was difficult to stand out to those, and instead I retreated, and kind of luckily like this book came out of that, because I was like, well, what can I do that lets me kind of take control of my life a little bit? And that was like to like work on this little creative project and like help it grow and plant the seeds and like water it every so often. And so I worked on this book in like extreme solitude, like by myself,
Yeah.
just like drawing and like being very dedicated, almost by candlelight. I thought about having it by candlelight, but I was like, oh no, then I'm gonna like burn these pages by accident.
Yeah. And or ruin your eyesight.
Yes.
Yeah, we've
yes.
got. I love that the dude who like got to this book by Twitter was like, nah, forget electricity.
Yes. Forget like drawing it on the computer even. I'm doing this like pen on paper. Like I'm doing this old school.
Mhm. And you also, in addition to like feeling alone because of academia, you also like were very far away from home, very far
Yeah.
away from your family, very far away from the woman of your dreams.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes. I've been in a long distance relationship for 5 years, and as of Sunday that ended. Not the relationship part, the long distance part.
as of Sunday, she was like, forget this book, I'm out.
I did not word that properly. But yeah, as of this Sunday, we are now a very close distance relationship.
Yeah.
Which is so wonderful.
Yeah.
And she's right here,
If
very
you
close.
peek in the back of the book, you will see that the dedication says to Elisa, my universe.
Yeah.
Which is if that's not the most beautiful dedication you've ever seen, your standards are far too high. All right, so I don't want to take up too much time, because I want to make sure that we have time to both
Oh my
look at the
gosh,
book
yeah.
and then also have some questions from you guys. I do want to say one last thing, which is so we've talked a bunch about the internet being, like the whole point of the internet being trying to feel like you're in on an inside joke, or trying to craft the perfect inside joke. And in a lot of ways, this book came out of some inside jokes that you crafted. And for people who have followed you for a long time on Twitter, they will find the Easter egg inside jokes in the book.
Yes, yeah, I hope so.
But I also think that's something that people respond to your work a lot, is that you are able to craft inside jokes that everyone feels like they're in on.
Thank you.
In many different ways. You also invite people in on
Right.
the inside jokes. You
Yeah.
have a tweet that I love, which is about trying to describe love. How do you describe love? You pretend like you've never heard of it before, and now try to describe it to someone. And all these people participated and gave some of the most beautiful metaphors for love that we've ever found. It was like a big joint group poem that everybody created together.
Yeah.
So there's the irony of being a character and a person and a fictional alien that is excluded, but working so extra hard to create art and experience
Right.
that includes other people. Like, that's not lost on me, nor
you.
should it be lost on you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yes. To add to that, I think part like the duplicity of it is like I am writing a lot of the times just for myself to be able to put words to all these things. And like part of, I think, my joy and like what really drives me to kind of put all this stuff out is because sometimes other people find it and like form these really strong connections with those words that I've been able to like define for myself. And so in a way, it's like through that piece of writing, I've made like this little connection with someone else, and like that type of joy is something that's what keeps me going. Like that's what I live for, just finding those little moments with people.
Do you guys want to see parts of this book?
Yeah. Okay. So do we have books in hand?
Some
Do we
people have books in hand.
Okay,
yeah.
great. So we're gonna mainly do a read along.
If you are a person that doesn't have a book in hand, make a friend with the person next to you.
Yeah.
Share.
And we also have slides for people who
You
who
can
are
also
not
look up
around
here.
books. Yes. So we're gonna start on the first page actually, or the second page, whichever the one with like the 4 UFOs. Yeah. And I think I'll just narrate this, and we're gonna all read along. Is that okay? Okay. All right. So let's get started.
This is this is definitely the first and one of the very few times that humans will get to hear Jomny's voice.
Yeah.
So you are an elite group to get to hear this.
Right. All right. In comes a spaceship carrying the night with it. Vroom. Wobble wobble. Screech. Whoosh. The spaceship lands. Please find out about the Earth creatures, says the first alien. Humans, says the second alien, pointing at a bird. Yes, humans, says the third alien, pointing at some grass. Take your time, really, take as much time as you need, says the fourth alien, staring at a machine. So, you're leaving me here all alone, says Jomny. Well, we'll check on you in case you mess anything up, says the fifth alien matter-of-factly. Okay, says Jonny. Can we go already, says the sixth alien, already bored of this planet. And so off they go, carrying the night with it as they leave. Everyone's an alien when you're an alien too. A book. Hello, are you a Earth creature? Asks Jomny to a tree. Yes, says the tree. I have met a human, says Jomny. Happily about the tree. Tell me about yourself, Jomny asks a snail. Oh, gee, well, nobody's ever asked me about myself, says the snail. But, well, I guess everybody tells me that I'm too small and too slow to make a difference in this world, but I'm making a difference in my own world, and I hope that's enough. Wow, you're big, says Jomny, poking a large bear. Are you gonna run screaming from me then? Asked the bear. No, says Jomny, continuing to poke the bear. Oh, thank you, says the bear. Run as fast as you can, screams the turtle, falling behind. Faster, save yourselves, leave me behind and save yourselves. And run, R-U-N, run, screams a bee. Jonny finds a dog, and the dog says a strange word that can be approximately written as the symbol of a heart. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't understand that word, but okay, says Jomny. Hello, what are you? Jomny asks of an egg. I don't know yet, says the egg. Okay, says Jomny. Isn't that exciting? Says the egg, beginning to shake with excitement. Who are you? Jomny asks a hedgehog. Oh, I'm an introvert, which is different from an extrovert, says the hedgehog. What's that? Asks Jomny. Well, introverts enjoy people watching. Extroverts enjoy people watching. Right? Hey? Right?
Grammar jokes.
Yeah. Okay, replies Jomny regarding a flower. Who must be an extrovert, Jomny decides. Oh yeah, bees, you like this? You like what I got? You like what you see? Because there's plenty of me to go around, says the flower to the bees. Hi, H-I, hi, says one particular bee. Jonny reaches ashore. Swim, splash. You swim very nicely, says Jomny. Of course, I'm an auteur, says the otter. Hello, otter, says Jomny. Swim, swim, swim. No, wait, I'm an auteur, says the otter. Another grammar joke.
Spelling
Yeah,
joke.
spelling joke. Hello, who are you? Asks Jomny. It's not about who we are, it's about what we will become, says the caterpillar. That's the gift of being a baby, says the tadpole. Isn't it exciting? Says the egg, barely able to contain its excitement. What's a gift? Can I have a gift? Asks Jomny. Oh, I actually need to stop giving things to somebody just because they want something, says the tree. I don't think that would end well for me, the tree frowns. We zoom out and we see Jomny's hugging the tree. What if I give you a hug then? Asks Jomny. Oh, I love hugs, but really, you don't have to give me anything to be my friend, says the tree. What's a friend? Asks Jomny. A friend is anyone or anything who shares a life with you that you'd never be able to experience without them, says the tree. Hello, friend. You used to be a dinosaur, Jomny says to a nearby bird. Hello, friend. You used to be a baby, Jomny says to a nearby adult skeleton. Maybe stay away from that friend, says the tree. Okay, says Jomny. I'm like an onion. Peel back the layers and you'll see that deep down inside I'm just a smaller, more afraid onion, says the onion. But you are an onion, says Jomny. Yes, I know, but I'm also, now I want to cry, says the onion. Hello, friend. Who are you? Asked Jomny to the owl. Who? Who am I? Asks the owl. I don't really know. Everybody calls me wise, and I've tried to learn very much about the world, but I don't feel very wise, and I know that owls are supposed to be wise, so then I don't feel owly enough to be an owl, says the owl. I feel like one day I'll meet another owl, and they'll take one look at me and say, oh, somebody made a mistake. You're not supposed to be an owl at all. Anyway, who are you? Asked the owl. I'm Jomny, says Jomny. Oh, lucky, says the owl. I love you not. I love you not. I love you, says the flower. Will you be my friends? Asked Jomny excitedly. I'm sorry, we can't, say the bees tentatively. We're afraid we'll accidentally sting you. Wait, hello, friend, shouts Jomny. I'm sorry, I have to work and I don't have time to be your friend. I'm sorry, can't you see I'm in a hurry here, says the beaver. Oh, don't bother with that damn beaver, says the tree. But I need to work, please stay out of my damn business, says the beater nervously. Then please stop stealing my branches, shouts the tree. They're not yours, shouts the beaver. Yes, they are, shouts the tree. I'm sorry, but these are my damn branches now, shouts the beaver. Those are my arms, shouts the tree. What if I never hatch, shouts the egg. Or what if I do hatch and it's the best moment of my life, but then I never get to hatch again? What if I want to hatch but also never hatch? Can I do both or neither, shouts the egg. Why are you so worried? You're an egg, says Jomny. That's not fair. You already know who you are, laments the egg. But you're an egg, says Jomny. You just don't get it, says the egg. Oh, says Jomny. Jomny sees the dog again, and the dog says another strange word, louder this time, that can also be approximately written as the symbol of a heart. I still do not know what that means, but I know that I'm happy now, says Jomny. From the sky flies the spaceship, carrying the night with it. I like the humans. They're all so different, and I wish I could be more like them, says Jomny. You're not supposed to like them, says the first alien, hands on its hips. You're supposed to research them, says the second alien, hand on its forehead. I do not like them, says the third alien, trying to be reasonable. He should be more like us, says the fourth alien, understanding the third alien's reasoning. He is already too weird, says the fifth alien, making excuses for Jomny's behavior. Yeah, says the sixth alien, agreeing with the fifth alien. The humans are weird, says the seventh alien in a matter-of-fact way. Yeah, says the eighth alien, agreeing with the seventh alien. And off they go, Jomny says nothing as the spaceship flies away. And that's where we will stop. Yay.
For the rest, you'll have to get the book.
Yeah.
So we have a couple minutes in which we would love to take some questions from the audience. So if you have questions, please raise your hand, and a microphone will be...
I'll do my best to bring you a mic, though there are a lot of you.
Cool.
There are a lot of people, so we will be helpful and pass microphones when Pete can't get to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll start in the middle.
Yes.
Hi, Jonny.
Hi.
I don't know how I can follow up that reading. That was beautiful.
Thank
you. I was wondering, how did the typo thing start? Was it like intentional, or did you accidentally do it once and then just run with it? Or was it something like that?
Yeah. So like the fun thing about the typos, and I can like talk for another hour about this, but
Wait,
like
for people who don't know,
Yes.
for the 3 people who don't follow Jonny on Twitter.
before I like launch into this crazy
Yes.
tire. I think part of the distinction of my voice online, and definitely in the book, has been to make typos and to kind of play with the spelling of things and like the aesthetic of the way words look and stuff. The fun thing about Twitter is that I'm not the only person to do that. And back when I started like playing with the Twitter comedians known as Weird Twitter, a lot of people were kind of messing up grammar and playing with the aesthetic and like making all these fun mistakes that were indicative of like someone basically like typing too fast and making a typo with their big fat thumbs or something. And like, so I was like the first, I mean, I wasn't the first at all, but I was just playing with this like long line, this like long tradition of this stuff. But I think part of it was that I just kind of stuck with it and everyone else kind of stopped doing it or realized it was too dumb to continue to do for 4 years. But I really like the effect of it because it kind of, one, it kind of creates like an inside joke that everyone can kind of get. Like it's kind of like, oh, these are the typos, but also like I get this. Like this is like part of the thing. The other thing that I really like is it gives this aesthetic of something that's not too carefully constructed, right? Because it kind of messes up the formality and the syntax of everything. But in doing so,
it gives the illusion that he's not taking it very seriously when he is in fact taking it quite seriously.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's kind of fun to play with that because I do spend like a lot of time trying to figure out the best way it reads. And there's just like a lot of fun things you could do with it. You can kind of change the voice. You can change the timing of things. You can make people slow down and kind of be like, oh wait, what was this thing? And then speed it up for the punchline. Like play with typo as a voice, but as like a visual kind of style. So
also, for a while, wasn't the bio of the Jomny son was like alien trying to figure out human language?
Yes, alien confused about human language.
Confused about human language.
Yeah.
So that was like really built in.
Yeah, that was
at a
really
certain
built
point.
into it. Yes, absolutely.
Other questions? Yes.
Sorry to bring down the mood a little, but and this is not to diminish from the absolutely incredible human/alien that you are, but given that you do so many different things, do you ever feel like you could be more or you could be better at something if you only dedicated yourself to that? Because I struggle with that a lot in my personal life, trying to like merge my different like identities. So sometimes I feel like it would be easier or I'd be better at something if I only dedicated myself to that. And given that you are incredible and do 50 billion different things, like do you ever deal with that? And if you do, how?
I literally think about that like every second of every day as I like ignore my schoolwork to write a tweet or as I like close Twitter and work on school and everything. I think it's like something that I'm trying to figure out still at the same, but at the same time, like I feel like I've done it enough to realize maybe that it's not that focusing on one thing will make me like just better at that one thing. It's just that if I do a lot of things, things will happen maybe a bit more slowly. But they still will happen as long as you kind of like can find the time and carve out the time to do all the things that you love. And most importantly, I think I've never found an instance where like splitting myself across all these different interests has kind of hurt my ability to do any of these things, mainly because I think having an experience from one field and then bringing it over to something else is kind of like the coolest feeling ever, right? Like it's kind of really cool when you see like two completely disparate things and be like, oh, I can actually, because I've done both of these things, I can like see how these things are related. like one of the things about the book is like I would go and talk about architecture in relationship to how this book was made for hours, because there is something about like structuring these things and thinking about like how characters use space and place that I've kind of built into this book. But I would never been able to do that if I also weren't at architecture school. And I think there are so many. I think people tend to put themselves in boxes because it's easy for other people to see you if you're just in a box that they can label you. And I think it's really unfortunate that that's the way people want to describe others, right? And so it's up to you to kind of say, well, hold on, I'm also all these things, and I also care about all these things. And just I think having the internal motivation and confidence to say these are all things that will enrich everything else I do. And I've definitely found that, and I think everyone who is doing all these different things has found that, and I hope that you feel that way too. So,
anyone from the
Cool.
back here?
Let's go in the back
Yeah.
so we get a human from that side of the room. Yes.
hey.
Was there like a defining moment when you're like wow, like people are listening to what I'm saying, and like you get like a following? And was there like a moment where you're like, wow, this is like actually like happening?
It still happens like every day when I think it's like wholly unnatural to like to be able to like write something and then have like a lot of people kind of respond right away. And I don't know what the first moment was. I think honestly the first moment was when I put anything on Twitter and like 5 people liked it. And I was like, I don't know these 5 people. Who are these 5 people that like this thing? And that feeling has just like kept sticking with me for this whole time. I think it's really cool, and I recognize that there is kind of a responsibility to having a platform where the things I say can find meaning with other people, and so I'm very aware of that role and of the fact that people are going to see this, and I do think words hold a lot of meaning, and I think that people are always like, oh, you're just tweeting, and like Twitter doesn't matter, and all these like things are so superfluous and like temporary, but I do think there is kind of a lasting impact in seeing all these words kind of every day, day in and day out, and so I'm very aware of that, and I try to make the best of it.
Anybody on this side over here?
So as someone who does so much, like I know I find starting something is one of the hardest things in any respect. Mm-hmm. So how do you go about starting something new, or like introducing yourself to something new to you, or just like starting like writing, for instance, or something like that?
For me, I try to just like follow the spark, right? Like that initial kind of thing. For me, a lot of it is just I like to consume a lot of different things across different like fields and stuff. And I think the way I'm wired is that as soon as I like fall in love with something or like a genre or a piece of art, I immediately want to be like, okay, I want to play too. Like I want to make this thing, and I immediately get that that kind of spark of like I need to like take all this love for this thing and like turn it into something that I've made, and to like put it out into the world and like be like, look at this thing that like my passion and love for it has created, and everyone else like fall in love with all these things too. So that kind of spirit is what I try to listen to, and whenever that happens, I tend to like drop everything else and kind of just like chase that thing, because I know like maybe that might be the only time that this comes to me, and I have to like find that moment and really and not let it go and not let it pass, and try to turn that into something. And I find that like once that happens and you just like catch that spark, then as soon as every time you come back to it, you go back to that moment where you had that spark, and it kind of helps me carry things through.
Any questions from this quadrant before I loop back around?
Can you talk a little bit about being an introvert who also likes to perform?
Yeah.
Have there ever been a point where you kind of felt like an imposter? Or how do you deal with that?
Right now. Why are you all here? I mean, all the time. I think imposter syndrome is something that I deal with all the time, and this goes back to like the multiple fields thing, because I also get the thing of like, why are you here when you do this thing, and the people who are here shouldn't also be doing this thing, and so I constantly feel like an imposter wherever I go. In terms of like the relationship with performing, I think like I fell in love with theater. I became like a drama kid in grade 9. When I'd never done theater before, and I like enrolled in a drama class, and I was like, this is gonna help me like talk to people. And in a way it didn't, because I still remained like very shy and introverted. But what I found was like paradoxically, like getting in front of people and having like a script and like a prepared kind of, it almost gives you permission to like emote, honestly. It gives you permission to like connect with people, because that's what they're here to do. And I think part of why I like performing is because that permission is kind of implicit, and it's just a chance for me to be able to kind of connect with people who come to for the exact same reason. And sometimes I don't give myself the permission to do that in like a face-to-face, everyday encounter.
Somebody else in the back here before I go all the way up? Here we go. Let's do this.
Hi, thank you
Hi.
so much for being here. I wanted to ask, I'm going into my senior year of high school, so I wanted to know what advice you would have for someone like me, but specifically maybe someone who has like all of that in front of them, maybe the weight of like expectations, like someone who doesn't know what their future is or doesn't know who they are yet, and just like with how to deal with that like uncertainty and just how to manage that. Or just general advice that you'd have for someone like me.
Right. Yeah. Totally. I think I felt like that when I was in your position, and I also feel like that every day too. Like I think for me it's also very helpful to realize like everyone kind of is feeling like that all the time, and some people just are able to like push it down and not think about it. But for me, I think like that uncertainty is kind of necessary in order like for to help choose like a path, or to kind of guide someone through life. I think one of the best pieces of advice I was given was from my drama teacher in high school, actually, when I said like, what should I do? Should I be a writer, or should I like go be an engineer? And she kind of said like, don't worry about it too much. If you can have a life that's happy without being a writer, go do that, because writing's really hard. But you might find that like you can't live happily without the opportunity to make things. And so sometimes it'll just come to you, and part of it is that as you go through the world, I think what you want to do will start to emerge and will start calling out more and more. And I think it's just about listening to those pieces and kind of following them when you can. I think like decisions are one thing, but then like life will happen, and things will kind of come into your life, or things will come to you that will just direct you regardless. So it's kind of like a both situation.
We have time for one or two more questions. I'm going to try to sneak up on some people on my way back up to the front, so just have your hands up.
Cool.
As an aspiring Twitter person, sketch comedian, and playwright, to someone who does all those things more and amazingly, how do you look at like an idea or a Twitter draft and decide, oh, that's a tweet, that's a sketch, that's a play, or that's staying in the drafts? Like,
Twitter's fun because it's kind of like a way to test ideas out, right? And I found that like if you can put an idea into like 140 characters and distill it down to the thing that makes it work at its most its smallest piece, then there's a way to kind of take that and make that the theme of like any larger thing that you're working on. So like Twitter is kind of fun because it's that thing. But then in terms of like searching for the right mediums or the right genres to put work into, I really believe that sometimes the idea will like tell you what it wants to be, and you can start working on it as one thing, but then maybe you'll shift and you'll be like, oh, this actually works better for this other thing. For me, I really love thinking in terms of like genre and form and stuff. And so I often, in like trying to figure out where a thing should be, is in thinking about like which form or which genre is this the strangest idea for, and like how can that idea kind of shake up like my understandings of this piece, right, or of this genre. So a play that I'm working on is set in a diner, and it's like 3 conversations happening at the same time. And I was like, this would be so great to see like on stage, because it's there's literally like no ability to discern what's going on. It's like 3 conversations. It's just like nonsense and garbled like jargon and stuff coming at you from 6 different characters. And that excites me, because I'm like, how do I make that? What is that puzzle, and what like how do I make that something that lets people find clarity in it? And so it's become like this thing where it's kind of like organizing a symphony of noise, where you have to really intricately like figure out where the words are going to be and what's coming through and what gets jumbled up. So for me, it's like it's finding where the puzzle is and then figuring out how to solve it.
We got time for one last question. I'm going to try to go right there in the middle, even though it's kind of a challenge, but it's on theme.
Hi.
Hey.
I just wanted to ask about like the bots. And
Yeah.
What prompted those?
Yes. Yeah.
Best question for last.
Yeah, this is great. I have 2 Twitter bots right now.
What is a Twitter bot, Johnny?
A Twitter bot is like this Twitter account that posts automatically every set period of time with like a kind of algorithm that tells you, or that tells it what to post. So like for those of you who don't know, I have 2 bots on Twitter. One is called Tiny Care Bot, which every hour posts like a little actionable self-care reminder. So things like drink water, look outside, take a deep breath. And then I have another one called Tiny Dot Blot, which posts like little, like almost like Rorschach tests that allow people to like interpret what it's supposed to be, and they write the comment down and then see what everyone else thinks it's supposed to be, and it's like this fun little like community in the comments. With the bots, I kind of like treat it. I fell in love with Twitter bots a few years ago, and I just treated it also like this this project and this like medium. And so sometimes I've found ideas that were that just decided to be bots. And with Tiny Care Bot especially, it was with my own kind of struggles with anxiety and depression, mainly around November 2016 for some reason. But I found myself like constantly on Twitter, constantly like unable to kind of take care of myself, and so I needed to make something that that kind of helped me take care of myself for me. And so that's kind of where the Tiny Care Bot came out. And I really see it as like these little Horcruxes I've made, like these little pieces of myself that I like kind of broke off, and they now exist in perpetuity forever, as long as Twitter stays online. And so it's really cool that I've made these things that are like doing like work for me, that kind of get to go on forever. And I guess as a nice way to close this, so is the book. Like the book is another kind of Horcrux that I made. That's a little piece of myself that I hope people kind of connect to. So, thank you.
Wow.